And welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. I'm Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from South Central Texas as I continue to manage my chemtrail flu. My God. But I think I have finally licked the cedar fever. There's a very good naturopathic remedy that I've discovered here. I've actually known about it for a while, but I had to go to the old store and pick some up. So at least that part is starting to take care of itself. And I'm sure all of you are worrying on pins and needles to hear that news. So what's happening out there? It's another day in Trump land. Did you watch him sign the documents? You know, the orders for killing the TPP. Have you seen that? The whole thing is just slightly surreal. I'm going to be straight up. You know, watching, because we've never seen this before. You know, we saw the run up, we saw the hand to hand fighting in the trenches with the primaries, and then the extended cage match with Hillary. But we're now getting our first glimpse of Donald Trump as presidential. Even though I predicted this and saw this evolving, it still is incredibly surreal. Trump would actually be in the White House signing papers that he's president of the United States. 6 years ago he's running The Apprentice. And now here he is, cutting deals and rolling the wheels of democracy, hopefully, forward. This is a really kind of an amazing time just to watch this whole thing go down. We're witnessing, again, I don't want to overstate it, but we're witnessing history right before our very eyes. You know, the thing that, again, right out of the gate, that we are watching with Trump's Gemini sun and Uranus and Gemini conjunction is we're watching two separate events, one that is theoretically positive and the other that can be construed as negative, happening simultaneously. This is going to be, I believe, the tone and the tenor of the Trump administration. Because on day one, he's just going to sign the TPP out of existence. Done. Day two, he's signed an executive order to greenlight these pipelines. On the one hand, we're saying, yeah, right on, Donald. Kill the TPP, man. Come on. Strike a blow against globalism. And even some hardened critics on the left could find some merit in what he did. The unions came out and supported him. The unions, the bastion of the left, supported him. And then the next day he says, yeah, well, let's pump some oil. Let's bring it in. But now it's like, whoa. You just did this, and now you're doing this, and I don't know how I feel about this. I like this, but I don't know how I feel. This is endemic of Trump and what's going to happen. There are going to be days when he will do the right thing, and he'll do the left thing, or he'll do the left thing and then he'll do the right thing. You know what I mean? It depends on your definition of left and right, but this is what's going to happen, and it will be frustrating, and he'll be he's a moving target. Keep your eye on what's going to go down here, because it's going to be these two sort of separate realities kind of moving along simultaneously, which is really going to be representative of the Trump presidency in a lot of ways. Just fascinating stuff. What else? Eric, who's a longtime listener of the show, sent me a text on Facebook late in the night, and Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, is really into putting backdoors into encrypted software. And this comes as no surprise to me, because one of the things that I saw, and a lot of other people who are not necessarily astrologically inclined saw, that Trump is going to be much more engaged in surveillance in a very direct way than his predecessor, Obama, although clearly there's plenty of surveillance going on with the NSA and related agencies, FBI. But with the Trump administration, I think they want it to be ubiquitous. They want ubiquitous surveillance. They want to have everybody on tap. And this is sort of the very dark side of what we're going to see with Donald Trump. And there's a reason for that. One is it is economic. It's economic. Let's explore that. To understand the nature of surveillance, data gathering, and information, one has to understand who's behind it. And the majority of the companies that are behind this are based out of Israel. So Verint, what's the other one? Nalus, N-A-L-U-S, Verint, V-E-R-I-N-T. There's more. And what these companies do is they basically are the spine for the NSA. And the NSA outsources all their surveillance to these companies. And who do you think these companies are connected to? And they're connected to Israeli intelligence and data gathering. The Israelis know everything about everyone. It's clear. So there's a huge amount of money in security. There's billions of dollars a year are spent on security, cybersecurity, you name it. So Trump has a son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who has very deep ties to Israel, and he's a dual citizen. And Trump has connections to Netanyahu and all these cats who have these companies who get the contracts and get money. So there is not just the idea that we need to be protected by threats. So the more information that they have, the better off they are in terms of stopping the threat. Do you know how much information they had prior to 9/11? They had a ton of information. Ton, but that's a different discussion altogether. Anyway, so there's from just strictly from an economic perspective, there's a reason why the Trump administration would be really invested in security. From Trump's perspective, not just the investment or the investiture through Jared Kushner and the connection between Kushner and potentially, I use the word potentially, Israeli-based companies, is that there is an idea that the more that we're spied on, that the more information that they have, the more that they'll be able to predict what people are going to do. And that's really what it's all about. It's a compilation of predictive behaviors and relationships, so that each and every one of us has, what's essentially what's called a straw man. Now, the straw man in legal terms is different, but there's a straw man. Like, there's a you that exists out there in a virtual world. There's a model of everybody in the virtual world. We don't know this, but it's true. And so it's like an algorithm based on all of our phone calls, our spending habits, our money, our texts, our emails. All these things are compiled into a database where we go, who we hook up with, and then it's through the access of an algorithm that can predict what any given individual will do under a certain set of circumstances. This is the nature of control. This is why they want more and more and more surveillance and data gathering, because they want to have the most complete picture of everybody out there. And not only is it about, let's say, your digital straw man, but it would be in combination. So let's say you're in a relationship with somebody. So there's you, and then there's the other, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, and then there is the predictive model between the two of you. And then let's say there's a family involved, and there's a predictive model of the family. So this gets very, very complex. And the more back end, the more storage, the more permission that they can add more variables, sort of the more complete of a picture there is in terms of predictability. Anyway, Trump also, in terms of the Gemini Uranus composition of his chart, Geminis are really into information, really into data. It's the nature of it. Uranus is technology. So even from an astrological standpoint, there's a reason why. Anyway, we saw this coming. We knew that he would be invested in more of a big brother society, and it's true. There's no, I'm not. There's no two ways about it. This is part and parcel of a Trump presidency. And then on the other hand, you'll get some kind of freedom-oriented piece that will kind of offset it, and that's the way this thing is going to roll with Trump. So forget being able to predict him or pin him down. It's just not going to happen. One of the things I wanted to talk about today in our brief time together is this whole notion of duality, which shows up, to a large extent inside of Trump's chart. Again, true node, Uranus, Sun, in Gemini. That is duality times 4 times. It's a lot. There's a lot going on there. But duality is really, the signature of Gemini, and it's part of this social order that has been constructed really since the post-World War II climate. You get some of it in World War I, some of it, but it really comes to the fore in the final years of World War II and post-war United States, Europe. And so how the duality gets fleshed out, manifest during the war, is you have socialism and you have fascism. These two competing models, right? And basically both started by the same people. If you dig into the hierarchy of the Nazis, I would say that almost all of them have connections to being Jewish. It's true. Miles Mathis just did a 30-page paper on this, and he got into and dissected each and every one of the main people, the main players of the SS, the Third Reich, and it's like almost to a person, they've got Jewish roots in their family, which is odd, right? So why would you create a Holocaust if you're, if Adolf Eichmann and Adolf Hitler and all these people are descended from Jewish families? Look up Miles Mathis, 30-page paper, and you'll say, this is mind-blowing. So on the other hand, you've got the Soviets, who were basically created out of an apartment complex or building in New York City, funded in New York City through Lev Bronstein, also known as Leo Tolstoy, and money that he brought from the United States through Canada to Russia to fund the revolution. So it was a Rockefeller-Rothschild operation. So you have fascism, and then you have communism, both basically funded by the same people. And so we have the duality, the creation of duality in World War II, and these kind of false dichotomies in some ways. And so look at what we have going on now in the U.S. We have a major kind of explosion of leftist politics. Communist Party, George Soros, Black Lives Matter, Take Lives Matter. It's all there, right? It's all part of this progressive, left-leaning movement to rally people and take on the what? The fascist government or the fascist regime of Donald J. Trump. So it's a microcosm of what happened in Europe during the Second World War. And so what happens is that part of this kind of social miasma with this duality is that people are kind of forced into one camp or the other. And when that happens, I mean, obviously, watch the right hand and the left hand is doing something else. So it's quite easy to fall into one camp or the other, to see like what's happening with the Trump administration and to go into some kind of apoplectic fit. Like I was watching some of the women from the women's marches, from that women's march in Washington, and Naomi Judd, man, what happened to her? My God. Wow. Her nasty rant. I like how she tried to drop her voice down for the third nasty. I'm a nasty woman. Oh my God! It was kind of a surreal yet amazing to watch. And you have Madonna doing her thing. It's like please. Her voice was terrible. It was like, ew. Sorry, I'm speechless. Anyway, but we're seeing this. It's all getting stirred up, right? And then against the fascist regime of Trump, and on the Trump side, I mean, you've got people that basically say, fuck off, join the party, get with the party, or get the hell out. In some ways, they're almost being sort of herded into. I wouldn't say it's a soft form of fascism, but it certainly is much more extreme, because these extreme tendencies tend to bring out extreme reactions in people. And even myself, I'm like, look, come on, we've got, let's move on here. Let's see what happens. Let's be nimble. Let's be adaptable. But let's see what happens. Let's give this guy a shot. We gave Obama a shot for 8 years. We gave Bush. I mean, this is what happens. We have elections. I didn't like Bush. I hated Bush. I hated that he was elected, and I didn't like Obama. But there I was. There you were. Let's see what they've got. And the guys in the Bush administration were awful. Just totally awful. And the Obama administration, they weren't great either, but not great for a different kind of reason. But they had their 15 minutes, right? Their 8 years, which boils down into really 15 minutes of highlights and lowlights if you really wanted to get real fractal about it. So we've got Trump, and we're going to see what happens. It's going to be a show, an absolute show. But what we have to watch out for is this collective trance that we seem to be sort of moved into. But at the same time, we also have to break the trance that we've been in. This is an interesting time because, we're staring down political correctness. We're staring down mind control. We're staring down the lockdown of our consciousness. And people want to break out of it. I mean, all of these votes, whether it's Brexit or Trump or what would happen in France, even California has their own version of it. People want to break out of the trance, whatever their version of it is. But I think the trance is all about political correctness and the mind lock of speech. and the inability to discuss ideas and points of view without being demonized, tarred, feathered, and in many cases, even ruined for life. Now, free speech has been pretty active on the left-hand side. We had Katie Rich talk about how Barron Trump would be the first homeschool shooter, even though Barron Trump does not stay at home and go to school. And we have a writer from, of all places, CBS Sports, Pete Blackburn, who tweeted out, "I bet Barron Trump kills small animals." I mean, what the hell is going on here? But it's free speech, right? Now, these people work in positions where they're connected to the media. Katie Rich is put on indefinite suspension. It'll be interesting what happens to Pete Blackburn. So anyway, I went back in time, and I wanted to look at when we really got inculcated into this duality. And so I was looking at when Uranus was in the sign of Gemini. This is right around the time that Trump was born, obviously. Hillary Clinton as well. So it's 1942 to 1949. Now, World War II ends in 1945. So we have basically 3 years of Uranus and Gemini kicking into that war and kicking into this, again, dualistic model of fascism, socialism, which are really kind of, one and the same in a kind of a unique and slightly twisted way. So we have that. That's part of the theater of World War II. But there are other things that went down during those first years of Uranus in Gemini, and I might do part 2 tomorrow because it's a really fascinating time. So, for instance, it's when the Manhattan Project was started with Uranus and Gemini. What did we do with the Manhattan Project? What was the big kind of moment in time? It was the splitting of the atom. And what did we use? We used uranium, and the splitting was creating a dualistic property of the atom, right? Which is very, very Gemini. The atom, you have the positive and the negative, and you split it out with the atom. So that all takes place during this phase cycle between 1942 and 1945, Enrico Fermi coming to the United States and getting the Manhattan Project off the ground. Very Uranus and Gemini. You know what else happens with Uranus and Gemini? Some interesting drugs are invented. Vicodin is invented with Uranus and Gemini, and also LSD. Albert Hoffman created LSD. It was in 43, if I'm not mistaken, 1943. Let me just go in here and look at my notes. I have some notes here. So, and what does LSD do? I mean, LSD is like the atom bomb for consciousness. It kind of splits the consciousness. It creates a temporary state of schizophrenia. It's an interesting state of schizophrenia. What is the United States doing during World War II? They're fighting on 2 fronts. Under Uranus and Gemini, they're fighting in 2 fronts. They're fighting in the Pacific Theater, and then they're fighting over in Europe. So again, there's this duality that takes place. Another really interesting thing, this has nothing to do with the United States, but it does have something to do with Gemini. Gemini represents early childhood education, school teachers, all that stuff, right? So in England, for up until, 1940, I think it's 44, married women were not allowed to teach. They were not allowed to teach. And then that got lifted. Maybe it was because of World War II. So that's, again, a very kind of Gemini kind of event, dealing with education and, you're flipping it around. Like, okay, we have, which is the nature of Uranus, we have one state, and then we have another state after that. Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted to create a second Bill of Rights. during this Uranus and Gemini period. I thought, well, isn't that fascinating? Not just one, but two bills of rights. Another really interesting, and again, I'm only kind of in the first 3 years of this Uranus and Gemini. John F. Kennedy was downed with his gunboats in the South Pacific, and of course John F. Kennedy's a Gemini, and it's this event that would become part of his mythology. Of course, we have the first news of the Holocaust in the prison camps with Uranus and Gemini as well. It's kind of a big part, obviously, of World War II. And here's what's really interesting. On June 3rd, in the month of Gemini, Hans Asperger, and this is 1944, so we're 2 years into Uranus and Gemini. Hans Asperger publishes a newspaper on Asperger's syndrome, which is kind of, in some ways, it's not schizophrenic, but it represents kind of a different presentation of the self. Am I right? So this is when we begin to move, in my estimation, this is when we begin to move into this phase of duality, the 20th and 21st century movie of duality. This is interesting. At Camp Hood in Texas, future baseball star and First Lieutenant Jackie Robinson is arrested and later court-martialed for refusing to move to the back of the segregated U.S. Army bus. He is eventually acquitted. Very interesting. There were riots. There were race riots during Uranus and Gemini. It's fascinating stuff. They had the Zoot Suit riots in, I think they were in 1943. That was in Los Angeles, the Zoot Suit riots. And they also had riots in Detroit during that time. So again, there's this division, this duality. Very interesting stuff. I'm going to come back tomorrow, and we're going to talk more. We're going to get more into this Uranus and Gemini phase and try to make more connections to the time that we're in now, and if we can somehow close the circle so that we are not being tossed on, around on this ocean of duality. So let's keep it there for today. Thanks for chiming in, listening in. I'm Robert Phoenix. This has been 15 Minutes of Flame. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.
Everybody needs to understand that I'm more than simply a hype man for this rap group, just like Geico is more than just a company that can save you money. Geico also has fast and friendly claim service, so they can help you when you need it most. And while I do love being a hype man, I also love reading for children's audiobooks. Like Little Bo Peep, she lost a sheep, and she don't know where to find them. Yo!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.